Fox News alert: the RNC filing 2 lawsuits in federal court today to obtain all State Department records of Hillary Clinton's associates, including emails and text messages. Here now to explain more about this, Chairman of the RNC, Priebus. Great to have you back on the program.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
This is really interesting news. This broke just a few hours ago. Why now, Reince? Why file these lawsuits now?
Well, we filed the original request over 6 months ago, and under the law, you have to provide for a reasonable amount of time in order for agencies and governments to comply with open records requests. So after many attempts and stonewalling from the State Department, our lawsuit becomes ripe after a certain period of time, and now is the time. And so now we filed our complaint with the federal court that we went through the process of obtaining the documents, the employees' texts and emails. They haven't complied. You know, this is pretty simple stuff. I've worked in government work. Other people out there know what this is all about. It's very simple. Citizens can request documents from elected officials, and the law requires a response. The State Department has not responded at all. They've completely stonewalled. And by the way, we're not the only ones that have filed the lawsuit. The Associated Press has filed a lawsuit, Gawker, Vice, and you know the story.
Well,
so
and that's why
another group.
When I spoke to Judge Napolitano earlier today, he called your lawsuit utterly redundant and said that you're actually at risk, potentially, of being fined for redundant litigation, which calls into the timing of all of this, right? And so you know that
he's wrong. Well, first of all,
there's other lawsuits, as you mentioned, that are all around this issue. You have the Department of Justice, you have the FBI, you have Judicial Watch, and they're further ahead than you are at this point. So what exactly are you looking for?
But we have standing.
But what exactly are you looking for that these other cases are not already pursuing?
The State Department, we're looking for the State Department to comply. We have standing in our lawsuit for them to comply, and maybe if the court sees that we are being stonewalled by multiple parties, that the multiplicity of what's happening is something that's completely and utter ridiculous, and it's totally wrong to say that the lawsuit is duplicitous or that it's frivolous. We have an independent ground, and we're independently have standing in this case.
Well, everyone has the right, as you mentioned,
the public out there,
the
public out there isn't compelled to simply sit back and shut up just because one other entity or the Associated Press files a lawsuit.
The timing is very interesting in all of this, and you know that. You know that Hillary Clinton has said that this is all...
It's not interesting, Jenna.
No,
if you file a lawsuit,
actually, the timing is interesting. Because
no, it's not.
Hold on, this is the reason why.
Because if you file a request for open records, you can't simply turn around and file a lawsuit. There's a certain period of time. Well, it doesn't sound like you do.
Well, let me ask my question then. Here's the reason why it's particularly interesting, this timing. You have Hillary Clinton on the campaign trail. We heard it again this week saying really all this investigation into her emails from different sources is all political. And so when the RNC takes the extra step, and you're moving this forward and you have every right to do it, but the decision to do it puts you at some sort of risk of making this very political. And I'm curious about why you're taking that risk now.
Because our lawsuit it's not immediately ripe after filing the request for open records, Jenna, because the lawsuit doesn't become ripe until you wait a certain period of time. And we have a right as an entity. This is nothing new. Political parties, entities out there across the country are always looking for documents. We have a right to see these documents. We have a right to the same information that any other group out there has a right to see, whether it be Vice or Gawker or the Associated Press. We have a right for the State Department to comply with our request. The State Department doesn't have the freedom to just blow off a political party just because it's a political party.
Absolutely.
The State Department has to comply. If you filed for an open records request, they would have to respond to you too.
They would. And the question I would be asked is, what is my goal that I'm trying to achieve that some of the other groups are not?
My goal is to...
I have to take a quick commercial break, Ryan. So we're going to be back. I want to give you time to answer that and ask you a few other questions about what's happening within the party. We'll be right back after a quick commercial break. Back now with RNC Chairman Priebus talking a little bit about this breaking news about these two lawsuits that are being filed or pursued further by the RNC for more information regarding Hillary Clinton's email communication. Reince, the questions that we've been asking so far have not been about your right to file the lawsuit. We certainly understand that that is a right. The question is about the timing and about what you hope to achieve now at this point in the primary season that you're seeing you have the ability to do as the RNC that other organizations, whether it's the DOJ or Judicial Watch or otherwise, have not been able to achieve so far. What is your goal?
I think the goal is to bring more awareness to the fact that the State Department is stonewalling, and also to pursue our right in court to force compliance for our requests, and that we don't allow a situation where we're requesting something that is perfectly legal and ignored by the State Department. They've done it numerous times, whether it be with the DOJ and Fast and Furious, other pursuits that we've had for open records that they've completely ignored, they continue to ignore, and we have a right to pursue it, and we're going to.
Then it goes back to the other question, though, about politicizing this further, and those that will accuse the RNC
She's running for president.
Of politicizing
She's running for
this
president.
further.
She's running for president. We have a right to the information, and we're going to pursue it.
And just going back to the issue of timing, again, we got through this big primary yesterday. You have Florida ongoing. You've been answering all sorts of questions about civil war within the GOP and the establishment and all of that. And so did you just file today, Reince, just because you had to file? There was some sort of deadline. What happened that pushed you forward to this Wednesday, at this very moment in the cycle, to continue this pursuit?
Well, I mean, it wasn't anything in particular other than it was the time that we decided that we wanted to file the suit, that a certain period of time had passed, that the State Department has stonewalled, that the extensions have been over, and now's the time for us to file. That's what we decided to do.
Is this an attempt to move those other lawsuits? Like we mentioned, Judicial Watch filed the FOIA request. They've actually had some favorable rulings from a judge that is allowing them to depose aides of Hillary Clinton and perhaps moving towards deposing her. First, there's a two-part question. Why not just let them continue that pursuit because they've been that successful so far and go at it alone?
They can pursue it, though. There's nothing.
Go ahead.
There's nothing that's not allowing them to pursue it, but we have an independent claim that we're pursuing. They can pursue their claim. It doesn't extinguish
of course not.
anyone else's claims.
But
I mean,
does
if
it muddy the waters?
It can all be consolidated. I mean, in federal court, if you have similar claims, many times the courts will just consolidate all similar claims into one big claim. So it's not any different than when you have infringement cases over patents, or whether you have products liability lawsuits, when you have multiple plaintiffs.
That's where critics will say...
It's no different. I mean, if you have
we
multiple...
understand, but that's where critics will say this is redundant. This is redundant, and perhaps it will appear like you're muddying the waters at a particular time in the campaign season. And that will raise a lot of questions, and we're curious your answers for that.
No, it's just like any... Okay, you've asked the question a million times. It's no different than any other type of case where you have multiple plaintiffs in a particular case that have all been aggrieved by the same party, and all of those plaintiffs bring their case before the federal court in order to enforce their rights in court. And that's no different than any other group. We have the same right to the same information, and we're going to pursue it.
Reince Priebus, great to have you on the program. We appreciate you answering a million questions. It's really a pleasure.
Well, maybe
we'll continue to talk about it.
Million.
Thank you, Reince.
All right.